The day my mom said we were all going on a simple family trip to the lake, my aunt almost got into a fight with a woman over a folding chair. My cousin disappeared with a guy on a jet ski. My brother found a locked cooler nobody admitted was theirs. And by the time we got home, my grandma said, "I told you the water was going to expose something." And the worst part? She said that before we even left the house. It started at 7 in the morning, which already felt disrespectful. Nobody in this family should be expected to function before 9 unless the house is on fire or somebody is being arrested. But my mom had decided we all needed fresh air, family bonding, and one full day without drama. Which was adorable. Because if there is one thing my family has never once achieved, it is one full day without drama. She had packed snacks the night before, borrowed extra towels, and somehow convinced herself that taking 11 unstable people to a public lake was a good idea. When I came downstairs, she was already in the kitchen packing sandwiches into a cooler with the determined face of a woman trying to force happiness through organization. Grandma was sitting at the table with tea, watching her like she already knew exactly how the day would end. Melissa walked in complaining that the trip was too early, too hot, and too close to nature. Ryan came in carrying sunscreen like he was being sent into combat. Alicia was dressed like she was going to a beach club in another country instead of a public lake 20 minutes away. Sophie had packed 3 outfits just in case the vibe changed. Noah was trying to smuggle chips into his backpack like food would be outlawed once we got there. Emma stood in the doorway in sunglasses too big for her face and said, "Someone is lying about the cooler." Nobody even reacted right away. Mom just kept packing. That was the thing about Emma. She said so many insane things that the family had built up a tolerance. Grandma, without looking up from her cup, said, "Not just the cooler." And that should have been our signal to stay home. Instead, by 8:15, we were loading bags into 2 cars and fighting over seating like refugees from common sense. I rode with Mom, Emma, Noah, and Grandma. Melissa refused to ride with Ryan because she said the other car smelled like fruit snacks and emotional instability. Alicia and Sophie got shoved into the back with beach bags, towels, and enough attitude to ruin weather patterns. The ride there was almost peaceful for the first 10 minutes. Mom was talking about how nice it would be to relax. Grandma was staring out the window like she was reading signs in the trees. Noah kept asking if the lake had a snack stand. Emma said she hoped nobody drowned because that would change the mood. Mom told her not to say things like that. Emma shrugged and said she was just being realistic. When we got there, the parking lot was already half full. Families, coolers, floaties, umbrellas, kids running everywhere, music coming from random speakers. The whole place smelled like sunscreen, grass, and public arguments waiting to happen. Mom picked a spot near the water and announced that this was where we were setting up. Ryan started unloading chairs. Melissa started complaining about the ground. Alicia was already taking pictures before she even sat down. Sophie kept fixing her hair and her phone camera. Noah disappeared for exactly 4 minutes and came back carrying a popsicle he had somehow bought without anyone seeing him leave Grandma. Grandma stood still for a second, looked across the lake, and quietly said, I hate when she does that. That little sound always means she has noticed something she is not ready to share." Mom spread out towels and started assigning jobs. Ryan had to set up the umbrella. Melissa was supposed to organize the food. I had to help with the chairs. Alicia was told to stop filming everything and actually carry something. Sophie was told not to wander off. Noah was told not to eat all the snacks before noon. Emma was told very clearly not to go near the water without an adult. All of that lasted about 12 minutes. The umbrella almost took out Ryan's eye because he said he understood the mechanism when he absolutely did not. Melissa found out somebody had packed turkey sandwiches and acted like it was a targeted insult. Sophie wandered off to just look around. Noah opened the chips anyway. Alicia stepped into the grass, looked at her shoes, and said she was already over the experience. And then the cooler showed up. Not our cooler. A different one. Dark blue, bigger than ours. Locked. Ryan had found it next to our setup and assumed it belonged to us. Mom said it didn't. Melissa said maybe it belonged to whoever had the spot before us. Noah asked what was inside. Emma said something people don't want seen. Mom told everyone to stop being weird and just move it to the side in case someone came looking for it. That should have been the end of it. It was not. Because 20 minutes later, Sophie came running back, looking dramatic in a way that meant either she was dying or she had found a boy. With Sophie, honestly, those two things carry similar energy. She said way too casually, "So, I met someone." Alicia didn't even look up from her phone. "Already?" Sophie rolled her eyes. "Not like that." Well, maybe a little. Mom immediately got that tired expression she gets when she knows a problem is approaching but hasn't identified the shape of it yet. She asked who. Sophie pointed toward the dock. There was a guy there with a jet ski. Of course there was. He was tall, shirtless, smiling, and exactly the kind of person no responsible adult wants their niece noticing within the first hour of a family outing. Melissa put her sunglasses down and said, "Absolutely not." Sophie said, "I didn't ask." Grandma muttered, "There it is." The worst part was that the guy had clearly noticed Sophie too, because the second she pointed, he lifted his hand and waved. Noah started laughing. Alicia finally looked interested. Ryan, completely useless as always, said, "He seems friendly." Melissa told him to shut up. Mom said nobody was getting on any jet ski with any stranger at any point in the day. Sophie said she was just talking to him. Emma, who had been building something with wet sand near my chair, quietly said, "She's going to lie before lunch." Again, nobody reacted fast enough. Around 11, things got worse in 3 separate directions. First, Melissa got into a passive-aggressive war with a woman one blanket over because both of them thought the same folding chair was theirs. Not a nice conversation. Not even a normal argument. A cold, rich lady war over a striped beach chair. Melissa said she brought it from home. The woman said she had the exact same one. Melissa said that sounded suspicious. The woman said Melissa sounded insane. Mom had to step in before it turned into a full public performance. Second, Noah became obsessed with the locked cooler. He kept circling back to it, shaking it slightly when nobody was looking, and whispering theories to me like we were solving a crime. He said it could be money. I said it could be drinks. He said it was too mysterious to be drinks. Emma, without looking up from her sand pile, said, "It's not the thing inside, it's who put it there." That was not helpful. Third, Sophie vanished. At first, nobody noticed because with this family, somebody is always walking off dramatically. But then Mom asked where she was, and Alicia said she thought Sophie had gone toward the dock. Melissa looked up so fast I thought she'd break her neck. Ryan said maybe she had just gone to the bathroom. Emma said, "No, she's on the water." And sure enough, when we all turned, there was Sophie on the back of that guy's jet ski, heading away from shore with her hair flying like this was the trailer for a bad decision. Mom stood up so quickly she knocked over her drink. Melissa actually screamed. Ryan said, "Oh no." Grandma just watched the water and said nothing, which somehow felt worse. Mom started calling Sophie's phone, which of course she wasn't answering because you cannot answer a phone while choosing chaos at high speed. For the next 10 minutes, the whole thing. Mom looked at Noah like she wanted to ask why on earth he cared about the cooler right now, but before she could, Grandma stood up. Not fast, not dramatic, just very calm. She looked down the shoreline and said, "Blue hat." We all followed her line of sight. There was a man in a blue cap carrying the cooler toward the parking lot. Noah said, "That's our guy." Ryan said, "It's not our guy. We don't even know if it's our cooler." Grandma said, "You do now." And then Noah, for reasons that still make no sense to me, started running after him. Actually running. Ryan had to chase after Noah, which meant now my family had split into 3 separate disasters. Sophie on a jet ski, Noah pursuing a cooler criminal, and Melissa still muttering about a folding chair betrayal. Mom looked like she was one inconvenience away from just walking into the lake herself. I told her I'd go check the dock in case Sophie came back. Alicia came with me because she said if Sophie drowned before apologizing for borrowing her lip gloss last week, she'd be irritated forever. When we got to the dock, the jet ski guy and Sophie were coming back in. Sophie looked thrilled, like she had just discovered the purpose of summer and bad choices. Mom was not thrilled. The second Sophie stepped off, Mom grabbed her by the wrist and asked if she had lost her mind. Sophie said she had texted Alicia. Alicia checked her phone, and sure enough, there was one message from 15 minutes earlier that just said, "Going out for a sec. Don't be dramatic." Alicia said, "That does not count as informing anyone." The jet ski guy, who now looked like he regretted entering our family orbit, tried to apologize and say he thought it was okay because Sophie said her family knew. Mom turned to Sophie so slowly it was almost impressive. Sophie said, "I said they'd figure it out," which is technically different, but not in a helpful way. Back at the setup, Ryan and Noah had returned. Without the cooler. Noah was out of breath and furious. Apparently, the man in the blue hat had loaded the cooler into a car and left before they could stop him. Ryan said they weren't even sure it was suspicious. Noah said innocent people do not sprint. By 1 o'clock, lunch should have happened. Instead, the day turned even stranger. Melissa opened our cooler to pass out drinks and suddenly froze. Inside, under the sandwiches and bottles, was an envelope. A thick one. Not ours. Mom said, "What is that?" Melissa took it out and turned pale in a way I had honestly never seen before. Ryan looked confused. Noah leaned in like he was meeting fate. Mom opened it. Cash. A lot of cash. Not millions, obviously, but way too much money to casually find under potato salad. Everybody started talking at once. Mom said, "How did this get in there?" Ryan said, "It wasn't there before." Melissa asked if somebody was trying to frame us. Noah said maybe we had accidentally stolen drug money, which was both dramatic and somehow still not the craziest idea of the day. Then Grandma said, "I was wondering when that would appear." Every head turned toward her. Mom asked what she meant. Grandma said she saw Melissa move bags around while everyone was distracted by Sophie. Melissa looked offended. "Why would I put cash in our cooler?" Grandma said, "Not you, the woman with the chair." Silence. Actual silence. Apparently, while the whole family was watching Sophie head out on the jet ski and Mom was panicking, the woman who had argued with Melissa over the chair had come back near our setup. Grandma had seen her crouch down near the coolers, move something, and walk away quickly when she noticed she was being watched. Why did Grandma not say this immediately? Because in her words, she wanted to be sure which problem was the real problem. I genuinely do not know how she has survived this long with that philosophy. Mom went pale. Ryan said maybe the woman had hidden the envelope in the wrong cooler by mistake. Noah said that meant she was definitely shady. Melissa suddenly got very loud about how she knew that woman was evil based on energy alone, which was irritating because 5 minutes earlier she was just mad about a chair. Then Emma said, "She's coming back." And yes, she was. The woman was walking across the beach toward us, no sunglasses now, moving fast, with that tight, angry look people get when their secret is not where they left it. Mom whispered, "Oh my God." Ryan said, "Act normal." Alicia said, "Nobody here knows how." She said a word I'm not going to repeat, spun around, and started walking fast toward the lot. Noah yelled, "That is not innocent behavior." Mom told him to shut up. A security officer and one police officer came over because, from a distance, it probably looked like one family was preparing to beat another woman with a striped chair. Mom ended up explaining everything, while Ryan stood there looking tired, and Melissa kept trying to add important details that were not important at all. The woman denied everything, obviously. But when the officer asked why she had come directly to our blanket asking for an envelope instead of checking lost and found, she had no good answer. They separated her, asked more questions, and eventually took the envelope. I still don't know exactly what was in that money story, and honestly, I don't want to. But judging by the way the officers looked at each other, it was definitely bigger than, oops, wrong cooler. And through all of it, Grandma just sat in her beach chair like she had paid for front row seats. After the officers left with the woman, the whole family stayed quiet for the first time all day. Even Melissa, even Noah, even Sophie. Then Mom sat down hard on the towel and said, "We are never doing this again." Ryan said that seemed fair. Alicia said the lake had bad energy. Sophie said the jet ski was still kind of worth it. Mom gave her a look so powerful it practically erased speech. Emma took off her giant sunglasses and said, "I liked the police part less than I thought I would." Nobody even knew what to say to that. We packed up in total exhaustion. No more swimming, no more bonding, no family pictures. Just damp towels, melted snacks, and emotional damage. On the drive home, nobody talked much. Noah kept replaying the day in whispers, like he was editing it into a documentary. Sophie was texting someone, probably the jet ski guy, with a face that said she still thought she was the victim. Melissa kept saying she had known the woman was suspicious from the moment of the chair incident. Ryan kept driving in silence. Grandma looked out the window and finally said, "Water always brings hidden things up." Mom, gripping the steering wheel like it had personally offended her, said, "Please, not today." When we got home, we unloaded everything in complete defeat. Noah asked if he could at least tell people we were involved in an active investigation. Mom said if he mentioned the phrase active investigation online, she would take his phone forever. That actually shut him up. Later that night, I found Grandma in the kitchen making tea. I asked her why she always says weird things before bad things happen. She looked at me, stirred her tea once, and said, "Because nobody listens when nothing is wrong." And honestly, that was probably true. So yeah, that was the day our peaceful family lake trip turned into a chair war, a jet ski disaster, a missing cooler, a hidden envelope full of cash, and some woman almost dragging us into whatever mess she thought she could bury by the water. Just another relaxing day with this family.